After 14 years, GSC Game World has finally graced us with a new Stalker game, and after spending a few hours with it, I figured I'd talk about my first impressions of the game. Now, in all honesty, I'm not super experienced with the Stalker games. I have played Shadow of Chornobyl, but I'm more familiar with the Metro series. But Heart of Chornobyl is a direct sequel to the original trilogy, but is a new story, so knowledge of the previous game isn't required. Although there are plenty of helpful YouTube videos that will help you catch up if you don't feel like going back and playing them yourself, but would like to understand a bit more of the backstory and lore that some of the NPCs bring up. Although if you are familiar with the original game, you'll find a lot of familiarity here. And just to be clear, I'm going to be focusing on gameplay in this video, as I'm not that far into the story. And so moving on to the game. The intro is good and lets you get a feel for the world, but it doesn't explain everything, and some things are easy to miss. There's quite a lot going on, and it's very possible that some of the things I figured out later on while I was playing was already explained to me, but I completely missed it at the time. But I will offer up some things I've learnt along the way at the end of the video, but they certainly don't throw any punches at the start. I died from the first enemy I encountered, and then swiftly went on to die a few more times trying to figure out what I was doing wrong. But after your main character Skiff gets betrayed at the end of the intro, the world opens up to you with honestly so much to explore. Something I really like about Stalker is its approach on adventure and discovery. Even the opening area of the game offers a vast amount of stashes to find, caves to explore, gear to loot, and enemy bases to take on, with tons of side quests. So if you're not the type of person that can just look in a direction and explore what's ahead of you, there's still plenty of reasons to go out and explore the zone. And all of this exploration is enhanced by how well the game immerses you in its gameplay. Guns feel great, and things like low ammo and weapon degradation are constant concerns that drive you to continue exploring and upgrading your arsenal. And a lack of on-screen indicators means that if you've had something like a grenade thrown your way, you better hope you've heard it or an NPC has called it out. Otherwise your ass is about to meet your ears. And then you have things like radiation and bleeding that are things you've got to keep a constant eye on and be well prepared to manage, but it never gets to a point of unmanageable where it starts to feel unfair. One of the first things that quickly became apparent is how hard the game actually is. Things like anomalies definitely take some getting used to. Enemies deal a hell of a lot more damage than they seem to take, and things like carry weight and hunger need to be kept an eye on. That's not to say that the difficulty is a bad thing. I'm quite happy to die and retry a few times as long as I can see where I've gone wrong and feel like I'm learning from my mistakes, and usually that is how I feel with Stalker 2. But the game has a lot of old school sensibilities and is supposed to feel difficult and challenging, so dying and overcoming obstacles is part of the experience. Although I do think that enemies can feel a little bullet spongy, and often fighting off mutants and bandits doesn't pay off as well as I think it should. But the thing I really love about the game so far is the atmosphere that it provides. It absolutely kills it when it comes to its atmosphere. Although at first glance it just looks like another shooter, it really provides a sense of fear and suspense similar to early survival horror, with its low amounts of ammo and resources, and letting you figure out how to approach things in your own way. Even its voice acting can come across a bit Resi 1, but I don't think that one's intentional.
But you're my friend, so I'll tell you for free. Your friend's name sounds kinda techy, so I'd wager he's a tech.
But when you're stuck in the darkness, fighting off or running from grotesque creatures, dodging anomalies, facing off with unpredictable NPCs, or taking on some of the ugliest and most annoying rats I've ever encountered in a video game. Seriously, these things are terrifying. It all adds up to an amazing experience. Few things get my blood pumping like wandering through an old bunker, dimly lit by my flashlight, only for a bloodsucker to appear in front of me and I frantically try to fill it with bullets. And that fear builds even more if you've been neglecting your weapons and your bullet gets jammed, then you're trying to run away while fixing your gun. Now, although I could sing this game's praises till the cows come home, there are some issues I feel are worth addressing. NPCs don't seem to care if a door is closed and will walk straight through it. Textures don't always seem to work properly and pop in and out when they wish. The leaning mechanic seems to move whenever and however it wants to, and if you get too close to a bit of movable furniture, the whole game will go into panic. But these are all issues that I expect will be ironed out over time, so I won't dwell on it too much. But also, be careful with your saves. I had an issue early on in the game where I just killed some guys, but was very low on health and bleeding, but with no bandages. And I kept running out of time to loot some bandages off of one of the dead enemies, because the game really wanted me to look at the guy trying to talk to me. But all in all, Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl is an awesome and ambitious game that will definitely give old school players a good hit of nostalgia, along with a completely new experience, and hopefully convince some newer fans of the series that not every shooter needs to be a Call of Duty clone. And now on to some tips that will hopefully help any new stalkers out there. 1. If it looks dangerous, it probably is. 2. You can turn off the yellow paint for interactable objects if you want a more immersive experience. 3. It's always worth doing a safety save. 4. It's always worth smashing any boxes you find, just in case there's some loot inside. 5. If you don't intend on taking the weapons of fallen foes, then at least empty the guns of ammo. 6. It's always worth repairing your guns when you're passing through the safe zone. 7. Keep food handy as hunger affects your combat performance. 8. It's always worth checking distant gunfire to collect loot. 9. Unless you have to, try to avoid fighting animals or mutants. Otherwise you use a bunch of ammo and healing items for not a lot in return. Lastly, number 10. Don't be afraid to explore. Some of Stalker 2's best moments is just from wandering off the beaten path and seeing what you can find. So that's the video. Why don't you let me know down in the comments if you've started Stalker 2 yet, and tell me what you think of it. And if you haven't, why don't you let me know if this video has helped you decide if you want to play it. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you in the next video.